If you are looking for a jelly roll project, or maybe you're just a beginner quilter and are looking for something to do besides basic squares, let's make this star quilt block together. This block may look a little challenging, but I promise you it is beginner friendly. If I can do it, so can you. This one shown here measured at 29 inches, but you could trim it down to make it a little smaller or even add a border to make it larger. I think I'm going to make mine into a wall hanging, but you could also put a bunch together to make a quilt or any other project you have in mind. You will just need 9 2.5-inch strips from your jelly roll and about 1 yard of background fabric for each star. Once you have your 9 strips of fabric picked out, you'll want to lay them out in 3 sets of 3 and then sew those together from one end all the way to the other. Then you'll press your seams open and lay them out and kind of figure out how you want your diamonds to look that make up your star. I'm trying not to get too far ahead here, but if you're kind of wondering how your strips are going to lay or fabrics are going to end up in your final star, here's an example. I'm kind of just lining up my finished diamond, and this is how they'll come out of the strips. For this star that I made, I wanted a more bold point at the end, and then the star in the middle to be pink. And then the fabrics in the middle are just kind of all opposite from each other, but you could do this however you would like. Once you cut out your 2.5-inch strips, I would just suggest playing around with it until you find a layout that you think you're going to like. Once you have your seams pressed open and your 3 sets of 3 are ready to go, you're going to go ahead and find this 45-degree angle on your ruler, line that up on the bottom, and then find the corner at the top there, and you're going to cut a diagonal line. This piece here is just going to be scrap, so I throw that off to the side, and then you're going to cut 2.5-inch strips all the way down on this diagonal line. You might have to play around with your ruler a little bit, but I line up that 45-degree angle line up at the top or bottom, and then you go down and cut 2.5-inch strips. If you're cutting from a jelly roll, you should have more than enough fabric to get at least 8 of these pieces out. I can usually get about 10, but you only need 8 to create your star. This is what just one of those single pieces will look like. So just continue going through your strip sets and you should end up with 3 sets of 8. Here's where you can kind of play around with them a little more. Make sure you like your layout before putting them together. And then when you're ready, you're going to want to start sewing them together. So this is one of the most difficult parts of the process, just because lining up these diagonal seams can be a little challenging, but you're going to place your pieces right sides together like I'm showing here. And one of the best ways to make sure your seams line up, I like to eyeball a 1/4 inch up on this outside piece and stick my pin through, and then stick it through again on the right side of the fabric on the bottom piece, also a 1/4 inch up from that edge. And I apologize, it's kind of hard to see here. It takes a little bit of practice, but this will help so that those diagonal seams match up nice and aren't all over the place. If this is your first time matching up diagonal seams, this quilt block is great practice for that. And if you're not happy with your results, you can just rip the seam and start again. So once I have these pieces pinned together, I will go ahead and take it to my sewing machine, and then you'll have 2/3 of your diamond done. I then press the seams open, bring my 2 pieces back, and then put on the one on the bottom in the same fashion that I'm doing these first 2. And you'll repeat that 8 times, so you'll end up with 8 diamonds to put your star together. So after piecing together your 3 sets of 8, you should end up with 8 diamonds that look like this. I like to go through them all and make sure they all match still, and that I did not sew any in the wrong order. And then you'll take your background fabric and cut out 8 10-inch squares. You'll then take these squares and cut them in half from one corner to the other. So you'll make one diagonal cut and you'll end up with 16 triangles. Now that we have our 16 triangles and 8 diamonds, we're going to take one of those diamonds and 2 of the triangles and find an outside point of your star. I chose this red fabric here, so that's my outside and the ends that we're going to be attaching the triangle. You find the short end of the triangle, and it kind of makes like this rocket shape. You're going to make sure it lines up and makes one long line on the outside. You will notice some overhang at the point here. That's good. We want that. It gives us extra space on the outside of the points. of the star. So then you flip these right sides together like so, and it's kind of hard to tell with the white which side's right, but then we will sew that together with 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it open, and then we'll do the same on the other side. And this is kind of what I was talking about with the rocket shape. I don't know how else to explain it. So then we'll do the same on this side. You'll flip it over. Make sure you sew all the way through on the bottom where the white fabric is. And then we will press that open. And you're going to repeat this process 8 times. So you will end up with like 8 of these rocket looking shapes. Once you have all 8 of those put together, you're going to want to give them a really good press and then put them all together. This is what it'll look like when all 8 of those rocket shapes are put together. I did 4 and then 4 and then did 1 long seam down the middle. Then you'll want to give it another good press, and we're going to trim it off so we have a finished block. So I went along all 4 sides and trimmed off like this diamond piece. I wanted a lot of space on the points of my stars, but you could trim it off to make it smaller if you'd like. And this is how it turned out in the end. It isn't perfect, but I had a lot of fun. I got to use up some of my jelly rolls, and I got practice with my diagonal seams. What do you guys think? Will you give it a try?